All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. We've got a good bunch here. Just wanted to say good afternoon to everybody. I'm Ashley Fountain. My webcam is working today. I got a new computer, so I just wanted to say hi and welcome you to our 8th webinar for the South Atlantic Coastal Study. We try to hold these on a quarterly basis. Today we have an hour allotted for this time slot, and with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Donnie's going to talk to you about a few housekeeping items.
Sure, thanks, Ashley. So just a few items. I am shown on your list of attendees as the SACS facilitator. So if you have any questions or any issues, please raise your hand or submit them via the question box, whether they are a question regarding the presentation or if you're having any type of technical difficulties, we can help you out with that right away. When you join, your lines are muted, but when we get to the Q&A section, we can unmute your line. Again, if you have a question that comes up that you'd like answered sooner, certainly raise your hand and we can facilitate that. We will have a Q&A towards the end of the presentation where we will read off any questions that were submitted via the question box. There are 3 sets of PDFs, actually 2 PDFs and 2 slides in the handout section. I'm sorry, 2 PDFs and 1 Word document in the handout section. We have the PDFs of the slide. We also have a PDF of the SACS placemat, which is a handout that kind of guides you through the SACS documents. And we also have a Word document, which is the letter of support, which Ashley will talk about later in the presentation. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Ashley.
Okay, sounds good. I think we're getting some questions in if you want to, I know you'll be monitoring those. So this next slide is a poll that we tend to have at all of our virtual engagements. This one is going to open up on your screen. A poll will open up, and we just ask that you kind of select which type of organization you represent. We have an outreach appendix that will be accompanying our report documents, and so we just kind of like to capture this type of information and record that. We also are asking that if you could go ahead and type in the chat, or is it the question box, Donnie, name and organization?
Yep, if you could type that into the question box. We have our poll responses rolling in, so we'll just give a few seconds for everyone to get that poll done, and then we'll show you the results of that. And then if you could just type in your name and organization into the question box so we can see who we have joining us today. So I'll go ahead and close the poll.
Thanks, I see everybody following all the instructions so well. Thank you so much. And the poll results are on the screen, so it looks like we have a good mix of government and non-government and then others. So we'll kind of go through the questions here and see where those others are from. None from academia today, but I know we have had coordination, particularly with our focus area action strategies and some of our other SACS efforts with academia. So thank you for going through that exercise with us. That we really do look at that information and we find it very helpful, and we try to keep our stakeholder database up to speed. So I appreciate that. Next slide is just kind of who we are, who we've got here, kind of our regional team, our command team there. You see on the left, we've got some of those folks joining us today, as well as some of our district project managers. One of our project managers in Mobile District has moved on to a new and exciting and different opportunity. And so we have David Newell, who has filled in for Meredith Ladart. And so just wanted to kind of go through that update with you all. We have contact information on our very last slide today if you would like to reach out to any of us. Next slide, please. And so this is what we are going to walk through. Wanted to communicate where we are with our South Atlantic Coastal Study products. As Donnie mentioned, one of our handouts is the placemat for SACS, where we have brief text on each one of those SACS key products. We're going to hit on a few of those today and kind of share with you their path forward. What is the outlook for those SACS products, and when is information going to be available for download for some of those. And then we have an example by our Florida planning lead, Kip Weber. He's going to kind of walk through the Silver Jackets effort that we have here going on in Florida. It's a series of workshops, and it's Silver Jackets effort and using some of our SACS products, SACS tools, and some other organizations' tools as well. We'll go through questions and then share with you kind of the path forward through the end. So if you aren't monitoring the schedule for the South Atlantic Coastal Study, we are in our fourth and final year. This is our 8th webinar, quarterly webinar that we've had. And I think we have just one more in the books for us as we kind of move to the closure of the study period. Of course, we will be working to implement our recommendations after the study concludes, but August is when the SACS is supposed to wrap up. So I think we'll have one more quarterly webinar. Next slide, please. Okay, so again, I'm Ashley Fountain. I'm the Regional Project Manager, and I'll be talking through kind of the path forward for some of our SACS products. On the screen, thanks for changing the slide, Donnie. So on the screen here is just one side of our SACS key products placemat. So in the circles here, we have these are the products I'm going to talk through today. So these 5, the Tier 1 risk assessment, the sand availability and needs determination, coastal hazard system, CHS, and Kip will talk about that in a little more detail later on today, the geoportal as a whole, and then the Tier 2 economic risk assessment. Next slide, please. As you may be aware, our SACS products are found on our webpage. We have the link to our webpage here. And all of our SACS products are in the technical study product section. Some of them have an accompanying report that goes along with them, and some are simply a geoportal. So some are simply just web-based, and you can see that for CHS and the Tier 1 risk assessment. And so that's why, as we're kind of moving towards the close of SACS in this study, just kind of wanted to talk about the path forward and what it means and how this information will be available moving forward. Next slide, please. So the Tier 1 risk assessment, hopefully you all have seen this and used this. We are periodically checking in on the page counts or page views for our products. And it's interesting to see those kind of increase and which ones are being used most often. And as we're looking towards like potential continued operation and maintenance and what that might look like, trying to figure out those details, we are looking at the page views and just seeing how often some of these tools are being accessed. So this Tier 1 risk assessment has been used very heavily through SACS, not only by our internal teams, but externally as well, we've heard. And this is just a regional analysis of potential flooding risk. So again, not looking at erosion. And we tried to make that distinction on the Tier 1 risk viewer. So just flooding risk in coastal areas. So right now, this tool is live and it's available for use through the completion of SACS. This is web-based. It's hosted. It's a GIS tool. And we are going to make the static data available for download in July of this year, kind of as we move towards finalizing all of our documents, similar to what was done in NACS, in the North Atlantic Coastal Comprehensive Study. So we will have this product available for use, the web application. You can see on there it says TBD for the path forward. And so that's just kind of where the purpose of this meeting today kind of comes in, because for full transparency, we're trying to work out these details. Obviously, there is a cost for hosting these web-based tools, and we're figuring out all of those details right now. So at this point, it's currently available, and we will have static data available for download in July. We have the link to this tool down below, and we'll have time for questions at the end of today's meeting as well. Next slide, please. I just kind of wanted to elaborate a little bit on what it means when the static data will be available for download. So similar to what NACS did, the North Atlantic Coast Comprehensive Study, they were able to make all of their static data available for download in these zipped files, and it's posted to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers digital library. And so the reason why we have to be determined next to our geospatial products is because we're still trying to figure that out. Again, we're looking at the page views, which ones are being utilized most often, which ones will have the biggest bang for the buck for continued operation and maintenance. So we're still trying to sort through those details at this point in time. We do intend on providing updates on kind of the path forward after today, what it looks like for each of these tools that we'll talk through, and when the static data is available and where that will be posted. So that'll be on our webpage. This link down below is to the NACS digital library data. Next slide, please. The Tier 2 Economic Risk Assessment, we've had a lot of interest in this tool. I know we have talked about this at our quarterly webinars. We've used the Tier 2 Economic Risk Assessment in multiple focus area action strategies, and we found this tool to be particularly helpful. Currently, this tool, so just kind of talking through the bullets over here. So the purpose of this was just to look at kind of broad, big picture kind of screening level estimated storm damage inundation risk as expressed in dollar damages. And this is kind of just, again, for screening level, just looking at the big picture. This is another product that is available on our, got a geospatial component, so it's live and available through our webpage. There is an accompanying report that goes along with this, the draft Tier 2 Economic Risk Assessment report, and once that's finalized, that will be posted to our webpage as well. The draft is currently available. Right now, some of the things that we're looking at, since all of these tools were developed at the inception or the beginning of the SACS, they are in FY18 or fiscal year 18 dollars. And so here we are in fiscal year 2022. A lot of our analyses have taken place, and we are looking into what it would entail to bring these up into current FY dollars. So at this point in time, we are including instructions on how to escalate to current FY dollars, and so we'll be including that in our reports for future use. So right now, again, you see TBD or to be determined on our continued web application. There is an inherent cost for hosting this data, and we know that this tool is being accessed and used, and we're making that point vertically within our chain about the usefulness of this tool. And future updates I have in here are, you can see also that that's to be determined. So when I was talking about fiscal year updates, currently the Tier 2 economic risk assessment costs are in FY18 dollars, in which the tool, that was the year in which the tool was created. But there is a good argument for wanting to bring this to current FY dollars, even though every year as we enter a new fiscal year, an update will be warranted. So we're kind of trying to see how often or how frequent we would, if this tool were to be carried forward and maintained into the future, how often we would like to continue updating this tool, on what basis, every year, every 2 years, every 3 years, etc. And then also I mentioned hazards in there because, as you all know, we have, or may know, we have the coastal hazard system that is now available, and that was not available when this tool was created. And so bringing in new hazard layers is something that we are also considering as well. So we have the link to this tool at the bottom, and just wanted to bring your awareness to that. Next slide, please. The third tool that I wanted to talk about today is the SAND, and not the report, because the static report will be available, and it is available. So that'll be available after the conclusion of the study. But what we're really talking about here is the web application. And so if you haven't checked it out, you really should. It's a really neat tool, looking at where you have SAND needs, where you have SAND that can be used for other products, where you can look into beneficial use of dredge material. And so it's a really great tool. And we again are expressing the importance to vertically within our chain about the continued operation and maintenance of this tool. But then you have some questions. Okay, so how often will this tool need to be updated? How often will the data that went into, and you can see at the image on the right, all of the stakeholders that were involved in the collaboration of this tool. So it was a heavy lift by many, and that contributed to this great product and the report that was developed. And so how often would that need to undergo updates? And so that is one of the things we are discussing at this time. Again, I encourage you to go check out the SAND tool. The link is here at the bottom. And the purpose of SAND, just to kind of talk through that, is it quantifies the need and the availability of sand to maintain for current beach nourishment projects within the SAC study area through the next 40 years. So it does look at the sources of the necessary sand as well, and it identifies potential locations of unverified sand sources and verified sand sources, etc. So it's a really awesome tool. It's for the entire South Atlantic Division. And this is another tool where we will have our our static report available after the conclusion of SACS, but we're still kind of investigating the geospatial component and how that will be hosted following the conclusion of SACS. Next slide, please. And so this is the last tool that I'll give an update on today. I wanted to mention this before I hand it off to Kip Weber to talk about the Silver Jackets effort. But the coastal, we have 3 basins that were developed and are a component of the coastal hazard system. I just talking through the purpose really quick of the coastal hazard system, or CHS as we refer to it. It provides time series and hazard curves for wave and water levels under current and future sea level rise at thousands of save points all throughout our entire study area, so all throughout all of South Atlantic Division, including the Puerto Rico and U.S. Virgin Islands. So CHS is currently available via ERDC, and so that is where this data is being hosted. It'll be managed by ERDC, and we anticipate no interruption to the availability of the coastal hazard system. So, phew, sigh of relief. This one doesn't have a TBD next to it, and we have the location of where to access the CHS data for SAD and other areas as well on this slide. So that kind of concludes my overview of where we are with our SACS products. I'm all for transparency, and I just wanted to let you all know what we're kind of working on and what that means for availability of data externally. And we'll have time for questions at the end, but thank you. And with that, I'm going to hand it over, next slide, I'll hand it over to our lead planner in Florida, Kip Weber, and he'll kind of walk through the example use of SACS products in the Silver Jackets effort that we have underway.
Great. Thank you, Ashley, and good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kip Weber, and I'm serving as the planning technical lead of the Florida Appendix for the South Atlantic Coastal Study. And today I'll be talking about an example of how a SACS recommendation turned into an actionable effort in Florida. And that recommendation was to develop and conduct the Florida Coastal Resilience Workshop as a Silver Jackets effort, focusing on increasing that risk communication and outreach for both SACS products as well as other state and federal. So to provide a little background, the Silver Jackets has teams. It's a national program and has teams across all states in the United States, including U.S. territories. And it brings together multiple state, federal, and sometimes tribal and local agencies to learn from one another and leverage program and perspectives to provide integrated solutions to manage flood risk. The Silver Jackets program as a whole is under the National Flood Risk Management Program of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And as mentioned, it was a direct result of a SACS recommendation to share information, knowledge, and tools to increase coastal resilience posed by coastal storms and sea level rise to a target audience mostly consisting of regional, county, local planners and engineers, and really anyone else involved in coastal resiliency as a whole. So just to reiterate, there's a national program and then those individual state programs, and then the Florida Silver Jackets is conducting this effort shown by that logo on the bottom right of the screen. Next slide. So this, a lot of this applied specifically to Florida laws and statutes, so I won't get into too much detail on that, but just a quick overview is that Florida has several laws and statutes related to coastal resiliency, and the workshop centers the training on these state laws and requirements presented directly from those state agencies to help communities facilitate compliance with these laws and statutes. The workshop then dives into some of the tools and resources that are publicly accessible and free for local and regional planners and engineers to use within the context of those state statutes to assess, communicate, and address risk. And then the tool modules go into, many of them go into a live demo, providing that hands-on training towards applicable areas along those selected respective coasts for the workshops. So there are 2 regional workshops. The whole workshop as a whole is 100% virtual. And each workshop is spread over 3 days, 3 hours each day. And the first 2 days focus on teaching those laws and statutes and assessing and communicating that risk. And then on the 3rd day, we start looking at tools available to address that risk. So the partnering agencies are shown over on the flyer on the left. And from the state, they include the Division of Emergency Management, Department of Economic Opportunity, Department of Environmental Protection, Department of Transportation, and the University of Florida Geoplan Center, covering those laws and statutes, as well as applicable tools developed on a state level. In addition, federal partners include the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, covering the Sea Level Rise Viewer, Coastal Flood Exposure Mapper, a new stormwater tool for coastal hazards, and nature-based solutions. And then the Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, is covering the Environmental Justice Screening and Mapping Tool. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers will also be heavily included, covering several of those SACS key products, including the Tier 1 risk assessment, the Tier 2 economic risk assessment, and then that newly released Coastal Hazard System, or CHS, which Ashley hit on. That was a large emphasis for conducting these workshops because it came out towards the tail end of the project. And then on the day 3, in line with that addressing risk, we discussed the SACS Measures and Cost Library, or MCL, and also the Coastal Program Guide, which is another SACS key product outlining those state and federal funding and grant opportunities associated with coastal resiliency to address that risk. And through coordination with the state agencies, training credits are available for both continuing education credits for floodplain managers, as well as the AICP certification maintenance credits as incentives for attendance. And we already conducted one of these workshops. We held the Gulf Coast workshop last week, and we'll conduct the Atlantic Coast workshop at the end of May 24th through the 26th. These workshops are generally the same, the regional ones, but the live demos will be geared towards locations on those respective coasts. But if you did miss the Gulf side, if you're on the Gulf side of Florida and missed it, you can still attend and register for the Atlantic Coast workshop and get a lot of the same good information out of it. Next slide. So in addition to the 2 regional workshops, there will be a 1-day technical workshop on June 7th to review 2 of the more technical tools covered from the regional workshops and go in a little bit more depth. The first is that Coastal Hazard Systems, where the technical workshop will get more into the modeling and design applications of the CHS and diving into the technical components of the high fidelity numerical modeling. In the second, NOAA will teach and demonstrate NOAA's new Adapting Stormwater Management for Coastal Hazards tool to analyze stormwater systems for scenario development based on user input, more for that design aspect of it. So this workshop will also be 3 hours from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., and that's in Eastern Standard Time on June 7th. And before I pass it back, just want to mention that the Jacksonville District has been in contact with several other districts in the South Atlantic Division that have expressed similar interest in this type of workshop, also consistent with those SACS recommendations to further increase that risk communication and outreach across the entire division. And if you're interested, the website on the right, and I'll also put this in the chat, this has all the information if you want to learn more and register. And thanks for the time in listening. Over.
Thanks, Kip. I was able to attend a few sessions of the Gulf Coast workshop last week. I found it extremely well organized. I know that they're my SACS team, but it was great. A great collaboration across many different agencies, and the tools that were demonstrated by others was really helpful and not only just applicable to Florida. So I just wanted to put in a plug for that, and just wanted to provide an example of some of our SACS tools being used out in the field. So thanks for that, Kip.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a pause now for questions.
We did have a few questions roll in. One of them is, will future updates cover the entire project area, or is it modular to where individual states can be updated when new data sets are available?
I wonder, was that question specifically for the Silver Jackets, or what was that?
I believe that one was submitted right after your portion of the presentation. So I think that was more, yep.
So what I'll say is that we will be putting updates on all of our SACS tools. If there are updates, we'll be notifying and having a news flash on those updates on our webpage. But I'm not sure if that question was about one in particular, and if it was, and you have some clarification on that question, happy to kind of talk through that. And let's see, what are the other questions that are coming in?
Let's see, Jill, did you want to elaborate on that question? I can unmute you if you'd like before we move on. Let's see.
Hi there. Yeah, this is Jill Andrews, Georgia DNR Coastal Management. And yeah, was thinking about that as you were talking about, Ashley, you know, what kind of time frame this might be for a refresh or an update or a revisit. But I wrote the question during the sand discussion in particular. So just sort of wondering what the thought process is there.
Yeah, so we're talking about when we are updating SACS tools. A lot of these tools, well, each one of these tools that we presented is a regional tool. So when we're talking about updates kind of as a SACS tool, it would be for a regional. And and so I'll just leave it at that. I don't think we would be updating kind of just state by state at this time. If that were to happen, then it wouldn't be kind of classified as a SACS tool at that point. So each one of these tools has kind of its own nuances, and how often it would be updated kind of is different for each one. So without kind of getting into all of the details that we've been working through and trying to figure out, right now, I think there's a high likelihood that our hosting of our geospatial products in their current state is I think that there is a high likelihood that that will continue beyond the conclusion of SACS. I'll say that. So all the ones that say to be determined for geospatial, for the web mapping portion, I think that they will continue in their current state. The question as to which or how often they will be updated or, taken to the next step, that still remains to be seen, and we're still trying to figure that out right now. So just wanted to let you know kind of what we're working through at this point. If you are using these tools, we would like to hear that. So let us know, send an email to us at sacs@usace.army.mil that these tools are really useful for you and you're using them in this instance, and why you find them useful. I think that will be helpful for us to communicate why we should kind of continue the O&M of these into the future. So I hope that answers your question, Jill.
Yes, thank you.
Great. We did have one other question. Can you share the registration link to the training that's in regards to the Silver Jackets training, and how do we sign up? So we do have the link. We've shared the link to the technical workshop information. Kip, I don't know if that's where the registration link would be.
Yeah, so good question. So yes, the website has all the registration links. We're requiring registration per day, just so we can track emails and training credits upon completion. But it is available, as well as the agenda and all other pertinent information at that link. It's hosted by the Florida Department of Transportation. And I can also, so it's all there, and if you're interested, you can also email me directly and I can send you flyers that also have the registration links depending on which workshop you're interested in. That Atlantic Coast one, which is that regional workshop, 3 days, or the technical workshop, which is the 1 day. And I can forward you that information. So I can also put my email in the chat, but what I'm going to email you, it is available on that website, those registration links. So yeah, I think that can a couple avenues to register for that, and thanks for the interest.
Great. I'm not seeing any additional questions on our questions pane, but if anyone has a question and would like to raise their hand or submit a question, please feel free to do so.
Thanks, Donnie. So there is one other very important item I wanted to talk about today with everybody we've got on the line, and I'm just still amazed by the continued interest in the South Atlantic Coastal City. It's definitely a marathon, and I appreciate everybody's continued interest as I'm looking through our participant list and seeing many stakeholders that we've been coordinating with along the way. So thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so as I mentioned, we are nearing the conclusion of the South Atlantic Coastal Study, and I have the next slide talks about kind of some dates coming up. But one of the things, in accordance with our watershed planning guidance, and specifically Planning Bulletin 2019-01, if you want to Google that in your spare time, I put a snippet of that guidance that we're following within SACS. And it says that we are to provide letters of support or concurrence from agencies or organizations identified in the watershed plan as having a part in any of the recommended actions. So SACS is a regional watershed planning study. So we're following this watershed planning guidance. It's quite a large watershed planning study in comparison to other watershed studies that have taken place within smaller study areas. And so we are following this watershed planning guidance as practicable. And one of the requirements is that we do need these letters of support. So when it says from any agencies or organizations identified in the watershed plan, our report is our watershed plan. That's what's going to Congress, and within that, and as you saw within our draft report and on our webpage, we have a list of recommendations. So the list of recommendations that went out within our draft report was just over 200 recommendations, and I still think we're right around 200. The IIJA, or Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act, modified that list among other recent appropriations. And so we are actively updating our recommendations spreadsheet and list of recommendations. So that makes this whole letters of support effort adds a little bit different complexity there. So, but we did kind of save this towards the end because we knew that we would be modifying our recommendations kind of as we go. And so here's our request to you all, or just for your awareness. On our webpage right now, and it was just updated today, you can see at the bottom right of this slide, we have latest updates, and in there you see letters of support. There are 2 items under letters of support. One of those is a form letter, which just got some draft language that kind of works, that you could, if you support any of our SACS recommendations, or you've been kind of a strong advocate for some of our SACS recommendations, it's just really providing kind of some draft language that you could put on your agency's letterhead, for example. And then we have our working list of recommendations. That's what that other item is, the working draft recommendations. So that's our latest list. I think it's as of April 13th. Again, we are working and making tweaks to that as we go, but that should be the latest and greatest list of recommendations. So if you have any comments on those, please let us know at our sacs@usace.army.mil email. But we are in the process, and we are going to begin our letters of support campaign here as we are approaching May. And I wanted to let you all know that. So what does that really look like? That could be your district project manager or district POC, maybe that's the planning lead, reaching out to you directly and saying, hey, we are required to get support or concurrence from any agency or organization identified in the SACS as a recommendation. And so not all of our 200 recommendations are going to require a letter or concurrence, but some of them we don't even have an entity identified. But we're going to do our very best to try to get as many of these letters of support or concurrence as we can. And so really, like I said, we're going to initiate that. Some have already started initiating that, I know, but And we've tried to make it easy by putting some information on our webpage in order to accomplish this task. But we'll be reaching out and asking for your letter, for a letter of support or concurrence from you all. Again, we have our working list on our webpage, and we have, it's a form letter. So basically it's just a Word document. I could have included a screenshot today, but if you click on that link on our webpage, and that's found at our main SACS webpage, you can check out both of those items. But that's kind of one of the very last important things I wanted to mention to you all today on our quarterly webinar. I did mention this in our newsletter that goes out as well, and that's on our SACS webpage as well. But we'll be asking for these letters of support or concurrence in accordance with our guidance. So that's why we're asking, and be on the lookout for an email from a USACE email address if you have a recommendation within the SACS. So just wanted to give everybody a heads up. And the next slide is just really our path forward. Looking ahead, so what we're doing right now, in addition with communicating the importance of the continuance of our SACS products, we are undergoing our final round of report reviews. So in total, we have 33 documents, our main report, our appendices, our focus area action strategies. I don't think 33 includes all of our appendices that we have that go along with it, like our engineering, outreach, and geospatial, but we're going through all of our final reviews right now. We're trying to finalize all of our recommendations. Again, communicating on our SACS products and tools. And we, again, like I said, we'll be starting our coordination for those letters of support and concurrence in May. And shortly thereafter, our district commanders in each district, each of the 5 districts in South Atlantic Division, will be signing their respective appendices. And in July, that's the time frame after reports after the appendices are signed, that will make the data available for download. So in July, the final report will be approved. So the main report, which summarizes all of the information in the appendices, will be approved at division by our South Atlantic Division commander in August. At least that's what we're targeting. And then we'll be submitting that later this year to the ASA's office, and we'll be posting our final report products in the September timeframe. So between now and then, we should have one more quarterly webinar, and we will be following our schedule for newsletters as well. We'll be putting any updates to our SACS products and tools, anything that is of note or of interest to you all, or that we think may be of interest to you all. We'll be putting that on our SACS webpage, and the link is down below. And that really concludes our main portion of our presentation today. The last slide, the next one, just has our contact information. So if you want to reach out to one of our project managers in the district, or if you just want to reach out to the main SACS email, and that comes to me, that's sacs@usace.army.mil. So our outreach lead, Lisa Clark, will receive that and send that to the appropriate SACS team member. But just wanted to say thanks, everybody, for your time, and again, your continued interest in the SACS, and we'll be reaching out to the field here in the next couple of weeks. Donnie, are there any questions here at the end?
We have no additional questions submitted. Anyone would like to ask a question now, please raise your hand. We'll give just a few minutes. Give people a chance to type in questions if they'd like to.
All right. I'm not seeing any come in. Okay. Well, again, today I didn't think that we'd need, an hour and a half time slot. We talked about our SACS products and tools. We'll have this information on our webpage. Once GIS data is complete. Oh, I was just going to read it.
Sure. Once the GIS data is complete, would it be possible to get copies to put on Water Atlas websites?
So that's a good question. I don't think we have our GIS lead on the call. No. So let's take that question and we can ask that and get back to you, Jennifer. Thank you for asking that, and we'll have to get back to you on that one. Thank you. All right, let's see.
We do have another question. Wanted to ask if there are any plans to host workshops in other states similar to those held in Florida.
Kip, are you on the line?
Yeah, good question. So we've been in discussions with several districts. I know we've talked to Savannah, Wilmington, Mobile, and some of those are further along than others, but a lot of other districts have expressed interest in doing something similar through the Silver Jackets program, because each state has their own Silver Jackets program. So we do have these materials. We've shared them and we're happy to share them. And then other districts can leverage these and create their models more tailored towards their own states and whatever those state compliant laws and statutes are. But this Florida can serve as sort of that template for other districts to do something similar. And we'll be continuing, to talk to these other districts and helping to formulate these workshops if funding and interest is there.
So if you would like to reach out to your Silver Jackets coordinator in your respective district, we can make that connection for you if you don't know who that is. So you can email me, or you can email the SACS at usace.army.mil email, and we'll make that connection.
Yeah, and the Silver Jackets is a great tool for bringing those state, federal partners together in order to do something like this. So it's a great mechanism that is available to every state and district. So it's good to take advantage of.
Definitely. Donnie, do you see any hand raising?
I'm not seeing any hands and no questions at this time.
Okay. Well, with that, again, I'll express my gratitude for your interest in calling in today, and we'll just close out this meeting. Thank you so much.